I'm Thomas, and you're listening to the Grace Sync podcast. Opening weekend is in the books, but we're not going to talk about Omloop or Kernel Brussels Kernel. No, we are going to talk about BWR Arizona, as we will find out, proper kickoff or not proper kickoff of the US gravel season. And to do this, I have no other than Chase Wark, who finished top 10 in BWR Arizona, to join me here. Hi, Chase. Super stoked to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Thomas.
In case that you have no clue who Chase is, maybe you can start by giving us a little heads up who you are and how you came to race BWR Arizona this weekend.
Yeah, so my name is Chase Wark. I live in Minnesota in the United States. For the European listeners, it's like right in the middle, hugging up against Canada. So it's been a cold winter. So I've been putting BWR Arizona on my list for 3 years now. It's just a nice vacation, honestly. Get some warm weather and went down, got 10th. I raced for my friend Drew Dillman and I. We started a new team called Lunchbox Racing, and I've been racing in the gravel scene since 2022. So I've been racing gravel longer, but been like traveling around the US since then.
And to be honest, regular listeners of our show definitely have heard about you, because when we did our season and award show last year, you were nominated and eventually won the most interesting setup award for your Unbound bike from last year. And of course, we also already talked, or me and Andrew once, we already talked about your 40-hour trainer indoor week. So you said the bad weather where you live, but that didn't stop you from training properly. Another point that you mentioned, Lunchbox Racing, I definitely also want to get into a bit more in depth. Just for starters, you and Drew Dillman started Lunchbox Racing. Can you give us a bit of an idea what your goals with this are and where you want to take this team in the beginning of the season, or in this season and then beyond?
Yeah, I guess honestly, I don't think we have this like plan of like a 5 year. Okay, in 5 years we want to have this team, as big as like the Pas Normal team, or I think a lot of European teams are getting pretty big. So that could be one thing. But we started it just because Drew and I became like really good friends over the course of last year, and we were sharing rooms, traveling together, and it's like, hey, instead of competing against each other, like we're very like similar in skill level. Like we ended up racing together for 40 miles at BWR Arizona. So we're like, let's team up. And I'm a racer who likes to kind of try to get off the front early, being like that early breakaway. And he's someone who is maybe more of like a race finisher, try to get into like the selective move, and hopefully he can be sitting in, I can be off the front, he saves energy, we gang up or like team up together at the end. That's like the ideal situation. And him and I, we're not, these like podium finisher, or like it's rare for us to like win or even top 5 a big race, but I'm hoping with some team tactics, possibly we could get a good result. And then, we have some shared sponsors. So I would say it's, I don't know what to compare it to, because the PAS team, like they all have their own separate bike sponsor, but for Lunchbox, we're sponsored by Lauf, which is, out of Iceland, and then Abus helmets. Our clothing is Bora Teamwear, and they're made 40 minutes away from me. So it's nice to have like a super local clothing company. And then we also have Silka as a shared sponsor, and then Good Life Nutrition, which is meat sponsor or like a protein sponsor, I guess. And then they
So
also
all that was in place when you decided to team up, and but technically these are all still your individual sponsors, right? They didn't contract with the team. They did with the two of you.
correct.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, this teams coming to gravel is definitely pretty interesting to me. Actually, a piece that I wrote is going to, I guess, be released on Escape Collective this week. And I definitely wrote a fair amount of how the big series should bring teams to gravel. And as you say, it in especially European racing, it is by now pretty commonplace. And to an extent, it's not so common, I guess, in Lifetime because they only have a very limited amount of racers, and then team dynamics cannot play out like in different fields, even though, okay, technically people could not be part of the series and still ride in the race. But that's certainly a bit different from the UCI and Gravel Earth Series races that we have over here. But it's definitely happening, and it's very interesting how the sport is going to move forward. And I'm a big fan of seeing like racers creating their own teams and their own structures that are really happening from within the scene, from within the community, and are tailor-made for the purpose. And in that sense, very interesting. And probably we get to how this probably affects the way the two of you will be racing, and then potentially other people too in the future. So let's probably take this as a segue to go into BWR Arizona. But before we talk exactly and precisely about the race, for me to understand, but also for our listeners. So traditionally, to me, it was always the season opener in the US has been Mid-South, but BWR Arizona usually happens before this. And then we are also going to talk about Valley of Tears. And if I look at the BWR Arizona start list, it is pretty decent, right? We had Keegan, Finsterwald, yourself, Drew, several other top guys, Tobin, and so on, racing there. What is for you the proper season opener?
I think BWR Arizona is the proper season opener. I think like the past 3 years, it's been the season opener. I would say looking at more people are going to register for Mid-South soon, but it's like you take the top 10 people that finished at BWR the past 3 years and compare it to Mid-South. And I think the level of the top 10 is better at BWR Arizona than it is at Mid-South. So that's just my opinion. Obviously, like Keegan and Finsty coming to BWR Arizona always makes it more spicy, but it's also a race that attracts more of the like multi-discipline gravel racers that kind of come from the mountain bike background. So I think I think BWR Arizona is the season opener. And I've always thought that, and I don't know why people I think it's because it's a unique gravel race in the sense it's not like a very American gravel race where it's like, okay, we're going to bike through cornfields for 100 miles on rolling hills. You have road features, you have like a lot of single track, you have dirt climbs. You're not on gravel roads for that long of the race.
It's like the typical BWR race, right? Like BWR is known for the slightly different courses where you have a fair amount of pavement, but also the super technical stuff. So, which actually leads us perfectly to the course itself. Give us, especially the Europeans who didn't race there, probably also don't plan to race there, a bit of an idea what are like the key sections, the key features of the course. Where is the race going to be decided? I heard on Instagram you told that Drew and you were climbing the first climb with the top guys and then got a bit dropped on the following descent. So I assume that's probably one of the key features already. What else is there?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact mileage. I should have had it pulled up, but you start with like a slight gradual climb for like 5 miles, descend, and then you do this like 10 to 15 minute climb that's pretty steep, has a few flat parts, and then you hit this off-road section, which is 6 minutes of like steep little kickers, and that's where the race really kicked off this year. And then from there you have this all the climbing you just did, you descend that like really steep, really fast on this like ATV trail. And then from there you hit some single track. I mean, there's so many sections, like, okay, steep downhill. That's where the race blew apart, and that's where all the groups separated. So I guess I'm jumping a little ahead of myself.
Is it like the kind of downhill where it definitely is beneficial to be from a mountain bike background? Is it that level of technical?
Yeah, everyone who made the front group was a mountain biker. And like you could make up a little bit of time on the descent if you didn't climb as fast. But yeah, if you weren't a mountain biker, like,
so super technical.
Yeah, super technical. I wouldn't even say technical. It's just fast. So it's like whoever is the most gutsy, because it's like loose. We call it kitty litter, where it's like a solid surface, and then you kind of have like, imagine if you just poured kitty litter on the road, so you can like slide around a lot. Yeah. And then you hop on some single track. That's more like mountain bike, like technical. And then climb up out, and then you're like mile 24, and then you hit some more single track. Then you hit these like moto whoops. That's like how they define the feature there. That's like 5 miles, and then you hit gravel road for 5 or 10 miles. And then at mile 45 to mile like 75, you're on single track in it's called McDowell Park. Not a super important
30
thing.
miles of single track.
Yeah, 30 miles of single track. It's good single track for a gravel bike. If you were on a mountain bike, you would probably find the single track pretty boring. And then from there, you head back how you kind of came in, and you do some, you hit a couple different dirt roads, but it's dirt roads, and then the moto whoops again, and then you descend down that first climb you did. So it's a lot of, I mean, you have like 10 miles of dirt roads, probably 50 miles of technical single track, I would say, between all of the separate parts. Yeah.
And then the run into the finish is on pavement, isn't it? Like the last 5 miles or so?
Yeah, the last 7 miles are all downhill. And I guess, like, spoiler, how I finished, a guy caught us, and I didn't scope out the finish. And they have this like 100-foot sand section that you hit right before it, and like I didn't know that was coming, and I had to get off and run. So the guy who caught, I was with Toby rode, or Torbjorn, and like he rode it. He had 2.4s on, and then the other guy had mountain bike pedals on, so he could clip in faster. He's the one who
Mostella?
Yeah, he caught us like right at the finish, and I didn't know he was chasing, or else I probably would have just gone faster on the pavement, because Toby and I were like chit-chatting about the Coca-Colas waiting for us at the finish line.
Okay. But still you managed to finish in the top 10 as 10th. And probably importantly, one spot ahead of Drew.
Yeah,
Like internally, how important is it that you're one place ahead of him?
it feels good to be. I wish I would have finished like more than just one spot, because it's not like we finished together. Like I rode 50 miles of the day
Yeah, four and
ahead
a
of
half
him. But
minutes almost difference.
yeah, but I'm happy with it. 1-0 to start the season before. Yeah.
So
So
for the listeners who didn't follow the race, which by the way, not super possible to follow it in detail. Everything in terms of live coverage happened in the Instagram story of the BWR, and yeah, they tried to give us some insights, but eventually it's just very little footage that is available, which is why it's so important to have some of the people to speak from the pointy end of those races. So the results, top three, you already mentioned Keegan, and I guess when Keegan is at the start line, how is it among riders? You almost assume that he's going to win unless something happens, no? By now.
yeah, I mean, this race, I feel like if there's one of the gravel races that's built for Keegan, it's this one, because there's a lot of climbing, which obviously he's super good at everything.
But it's not at altitude.
Yeah, it's not at
right. It's like at above 1,000 meters a lot, but not going to like 2,000 meters. What would that be, like 6,000 feet or so? It's not this high.
Yeah, the furthest it gets is 4,000 feet. So I think like 12 or 1,300 meters.
Yeah, something. I memorized something like 1,500 or so.
Or, but yeah, the course is just built for him, I think.
And then he was gone for a long time with Russell Finsty, and but he came to the finish solo, so he must have dropped him at the very end, I assume.
Yeah,
and
I think
third place, Andrew L'Esperance. I don't know. Where's he from? Is he Canada?
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Okay, yeah, then I guess the French pronunciation is actually pretty accurate, and pretty interesting. So I don't know if you know the guy Hugo Dréchou, who finished in fourth. I think he's going to do the Lifetime Grand Prix this year for the first time. And last year he was pretty good in the UCI races as well as Gravel Earth Series. So a name that here in Europe we definitely had on the agenda. I don't know if you have raced before or knew the guy before.
No, I've never raced against him. I saw he was on the start list, and then I also saw him pre-riding some of the single track, and he was going really fast. So I'm like, that guy must be like, I just put 2 and 2 together, and I'm like, he's probably going to be super good. So
yeah, and he's like also from a mountain bike background. I think cross country, but I could mess things up here. But yeah, also mountain biker. And then Zach Carlton, landsided, Kyle Trudeau, Torbjorn, you already mentioned Luke Mostella, yourself, and 11th place, Andrew Dillman, ahead of Torben Ortenblad. So that is like the results, top 12. But how did your day go? What were the decisive moments for yourself?
Yeah, so I would say there was a big group hitting that, that first dirt climb, probably 40 of us. There was a slight headwind coming up the road climb, so I think that made the group stay together. Like it looked like Keegan and Rob Britton, he's from Canada, has a road background. He's really good at climbing. It looked like those two were trying to make it hard, but sitting in the wheels was relatively easy. And then once we hit that dirt section, just by the nature of like how it is, everyone kind of had to let little gaps open. And that's where it just went hard. And then there was Andrew Lesperance led up the climb, and then Kyle Trudeau. And then I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. It was Keegan and then me. And then Keegan started opening a gap, and I'm like, okay, like what's going on? Is he just like giving a little little bit of playroom or what. And then I had to go around Keegan on a climb, which like I was pretty surprised about. So I went up and over the climb, third wheel. I was a few seconds behind Andrew and Kyle Trudeau. Those were the first two guys over the climb, and they both have a mountain bike background. So I didn't catch them on the descent. And then I knew like Keegan, Finstey, Lance Haydet, I knew they were all going to be passing me soon. So I let them by whenever they like shouted, and then I would try to follow them. I wasn't able to follow them for.
Would you say that is common etiquette among the pros to let people pass, or is it becoming feisty there?
I feel like I don't actually know, because usually I'm not like in a mountain bike race, maybe not, but for me it's
I mean in gravel races nowadays.
Yeah, I would say probably not, but like I respect all of those guys and I'm friends with a lot of them, and they know that I'm not the best bike handler, and they're some of the best bike handlers in the country. So I'm like, it's better for me to let them pass and I try to follow their wheel instead of like not letting them pass. They get upset, like hopefully sometime in the future they'll be like, oh yeah, Chase let me by, like I'll give him a little extra longer pole, or if he has
race karma.
Yeah. So, then there was, I think it was 6 or 7 guys. It was Keegan, Lance Haydet, Truman Glasgow, Hugo, Zach Colton, and Andrew Lesprance. They were all up the road. And then Finstey, I don't know what happened to him. He passed me a little while longer. Like all of those guys kind of grouped up together. Oh, and Hugo was up there. And then Finstey passed me a little later, but then him and Truman Glasgow, they climbed and caught the front group. So I was kind of in no man's land. After the descent, there's a slight climb and then that single track. So I was in no man's land up the climb, and then Drew caught me, and we did all the single track and whoops together. And then we kept thinking we were seeing the front group, but how they had the course laid out, the short course, we were already passing people like 90 minutes into the race. So
okay,
it was actually short course people we were seeing and not the front group. And yeah,
still probably in the moment motivating, no, to see people and think you're seeing these people, so you're on the gas.
Yeah, and like I think it helped us keep the watts down, like, or helped us push the pace. And then we hit the single track at mile 44. I kept asking people like, what's the gap, and then we finally heard 90 seconds, so we're like, oh, we're not like close to them, let's just like settle into a good pace now. And then I knew just from like race history that some of those people in the front group, and Torbjorn was in the front, so there was like 8 people up there. I knew I knew some people would blow up in the race, and so it's like
point.
Yeah, and it was starting to get, well, I'm from Minnesota, so I've been in like, I don't know what it is in Celsius, but like 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've been in like
bloody cold, we call it.
Yeah. Me and Drew kept a good pace. And then I went away from Drew around mile like 50 or 60. And then I got caught by Kyle Trudeau and the guy who got 9th. I keep forgetting his name. Luke,
it was Luke something. Yeah, Luke. I need to double check. I have it here. Mostella.
Okay. Yeah, Luke and Kyle Trudeau caught me. And Bear Devo is like a really good mountain biking team. So I didn't know who Luke was, but since he had a Bear Devo jersey on, I'm like, he's probably a good wheel to follow in this mountain bike section. So
Yeah.
I followed them, and then Kyle and I dropped Luke, and then we caught Toby, and then dropped Toby, and then at like mile 90, once I hit the moto whoops, Kyle dropped me, and I was like pretty shelled at this point. It was like uphill, tailwind, so you got like no cooling effect, and I like jersey unzipped, belly hanging out, and then Toby caught me, and then him and I rode into the finish together, and that's when Luke caught us. Like, you take a right hand turn right before the finish, and all of a sudden
He came from the behind.
Yeah, he came from behind, and I'm like, why is this short course guy like trying to race me and Toby? And then I saw his jersey, and I'm like, oh wait, you're in our field. I'm like, this isn't good. Like, I have to sprint against the mountain biker and Toby. Like,
and you were already looking forward to the Coke.
Yeah, I was already set in the Coca-Cola, and honestly, like at that point, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go, but also like, let's not be dangerous, because there's like 2 more important race weekends. So yeah, came in behind Toby and Luke, and like I was super happy with 10th, because last year I got 14th, I think, or 12th, and then the year before that it was like 18th. So I've been improving every single year, and as a lot of people say, like the fields just keep getting faster and faster and better. So like if I'm able to improve my results, that's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we will get to the other races in the upcoming weeks in a minute as well, but probably BWR, based on how I would judge you as a rider, is probably the one that suits you the least of the 3. Would you agree? Or
yeah, so I actually, knowing that like the technical features don't really suit me, because like what you said, I did a 40-hour Zwift week. I wasn't outside riding my bike. So I planned it so this BWR Arizona was at the end of a 3-week training block, and now I'll go into a recovery week before Valley of Tears, and then taper into Mid-South.
Who's planning your training? Do you work with a coach? Do you do it yourself?
I planned half of my off season myself, and then I hired after my 40-hour week, I hired my old coach, Noah Middlestedt, back.
Okay.
He's Gimp Cyclist on Instagram. So he works with he's a para athlete, and he works with a lot of other para athletes, but he's from like really close to my hometown, and he coached me in like 2019, when I had my best power numbers. He was my coach. Okay. So yeah, there was just some things I told him, like, hey, I need, like, we had to adjust recovery weeks and everything, because just everyone's personal. So I was like, what you're giving me isn't working, so I'm rehiring you, but I'm going to determine how like I taper into events and how I do recovery weeks.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And then I would assume that like between these 3 races, BWR was probably not your A race, quote unquote.
Yeah, no, I use it just as like a measuring tool, kind of. Like, I'm not going to peak for a race I don't think I could win. So it's, okay, let's see how I do on the, like, it's nice having Strava, because I can compare my times on the downhills, or times it's always like in the moto whoops. And yeah, my time improved a lot in a lot of the technical sections this year.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, before we went on the record, for our European listeners, being and racing in the US is really like racing all over Europe, and not just within one of the countries we have in Europe. And you told me to get to BWR Arizona, for you it's like a 24-hour drive. So yeah, I don't know over how many days you stretched it, but I assume you don't come in there the freshest, and you also probably didn't come there like 2 weeks before, 1 week before to acclimatize there. So even
Yeah.
traveling there is quite stressful.
Yeah, I my wife and I planned it so I would leave like 13 days before the race and then get there like 9 days before the race, so 4 days of travel. But then there was a snowstorm in the United States that blocked, like, in Oklahoma, which is like kind of southern United States. It's south enough where like I wouldn't want to travel through that state when there's snow. So I stayed in the same hotel for 2 days in a row. So I did have a 12-hour car ride the next day and then a 6-hour ride. But yeah. And then I was down here for 8 days before. So I rode the course itself 3 separate times.
Nice, but so you at least did like recon work, and you were, of course, from the years before you already knew it. How much do they change the course? I think this year they changed it a bit.
They changed. This year they didn't have anything new. It's just how they started it, I guess. So last year they had it start. I guess they have had some like more whoops at the start, which caused a lot of crashes. So this year they changed it back to how it was the first year, which is that longer climb and then to the dirt climb and then down the dirt path or whatever you want to call it. So that's a safer way to start the race, I think. And then, yeah, so you're using all the same sections. It's just how they piece it together.
And how is the start done? It's one mass start, or do pros, women and men start separately, and then age groupers or the rest, or how is it handled?
It's a mass start, so it's pretty chaotic.
The good old ways.
Yeah, the classic, the spirit of gravel ways.
Still alive.
Yeah.
Even though Dylan claimed otherwise. So, but that's a good transition to my like overarching BWR point or question to you, because like from a European perspective at least, or let's even go back in time when I started to really follow gravel and get deeper into it, I don't know, like 4 years ago maybe. BWR was like the thing in my mind. There was Unbound, there was not yet Lifetime Grand Prix, and so BWR was really the thing. And by now, if I talk about the big three series, then I always refer to Lifetime Gravel Earth Series and the UCI Gravel World Series, and BWR is like my 3.5 or so. So in the ranking, it kind of lost relevance, at least compared to the others. But I wonder, is that like a European perspective, or do you also have the impression that a BWR is not on the same level like these others in as a gravel racing series, or off-road, unroad, I think they call it, series?
Yeah, they call it on-road. And I think you're right. I think you don't hear many people being like, yeah, I'm going to target the BWR series. I think one issue is they're always changing what races are in the series when the races are. So it's never consistent. And it's not like 1 week difference. It's like, I think Utah used to be in the fall and now it's like right after Onbound or right before Onbound, like the week before Onbound, they have a race. And it's like, well, the most important race, at least for us Americans, is Onbound. So no one's going to go waste their energy to go do a BWR race. And then they're always changing like how many races are in the series and how the scoring is. And they're not very public of like what's the prize payout and yeah, like
I mean, this year they do. I think they had kind of established the triple crown, and now they have like what, the quadruple crown.
it's like a quad triple
Triple.
crown, and it's just like I don't know. It's a little disorganized. I think like I think the courses are super cool and everything. At least BWR Arizona, and I've done BWR Utah, and the courses are great. They're different than a lot of other American gravel races, but I think pros kind of like consistency on what they can expect in a series and like planning everything. So that's the biggest issue, I think.
That's a pretty good point, because I was wondering like how come, and to me as an observer who follows gravel, but obviously I live on a different continent, so what I need is media, and definitely they are not investing as much as, for instance, Lifetime into bringing it to an audience. Then whenever I hear people talk about these races and when I read about them, I all like you say, I find they almost have their own style, which I find pretty cool. I like the branding. I like a lot of the stuff that they do, but they probably don't focus as much on bringing it to audiences. Maybe they don't have a strong vision of their series being a spectator sport, whereas others clearly do. And that also probably then for a pro like yourself and the others also changes the attractiveness, because what you need and what your sponsors crave and so on is publicity, and publicity ideally beyond the people participating in these races.
Yeah, I would say that is like one of their not strong suits, is that media coverage that us pros need or want. Like even if there's a good local grassroots race that has good like media presence, and it's just got to be like a couple stories, maybe posting who's on the start list besides Keegan Swenson. I think that would help get more pros out to the BWR races. And I feel like, I don't know, like you look at how much like any of the big races charge, like they charge like $200+ for registration. So usually when you pay that much as a pro, you're like, okay, I think like Lifetime has done a good setting a standard of like, here's what we're going to do for media coverage. Or even I'll give a shout out to Gravel Worlds in Nebraska, not
the Lauf this year, Lauf, formerly Garmin.
Yeah. Like they've always done a great job of just simple Instagram stories. I think that's a great way to cover races. And I mean, Gravel Worlds last year did live coverage, and that was...
Yeah, they set the gold standard for gravel live coverage.
Yeah. So, I think just a few upgrades and like BWR could be right there, because the courses are more fun than Unbound or any of.
I love how everybody likes trashing Unbound.
Yeah, it's.
But I mean, it's true. Like even as like a spectator, it's not like the most interesting, even though we don't get full live coverage yet. But maybe if gravel races start full live coverage, don't put Unbound on the biggest screen if you want to get new watchers.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic. No, but it definitely interesting, and I hope, honestly, all the best. And I would love if they leveled up their media game and bringing it to people, because I think that the name still resonates, and it's a pretty good brand in the cycling world, I feel like. And let's see if they can step up their game when it comes to this. Quick ad break here. in case you don't know, we have a Patreon, and if you like the content that we do and the gravel coverage that we provide here on the Gracing Podcast and of course on the Outside Podcast, we would be super stoked if you would join us on Patreon, which among other things gives you access to our community Discord server where we talk about gravel racing, gravel tech and many other topics. And of course, we make you more part of the discussion. You can ask questions to guests that we have ahead of time and much more. So if you enjoyed, if you want to support this here, please jump over on Patreon. The link is in the show notes and provide a little bit of support for us here. That's it. Back to the conversation. Let's go to Valley of Tears, which, to be honest, is probably a race that I knew almost nothing about. Maybe I had heard the name before, but that's about it before I started prepping a bit for this episode and looking at it. But it strikes me like it's really one of these independent but really, really cool races that you also still have in the US, besides the races that are known because they are part of the big series.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like something that you have done a few times before, or is it your first time going there as well?
So Valley of Tears this year will be its second year running. So last year I heard of it kind of to register for a lot of bike races in the United States, we use bikereg.com.
Mhm.
And I was just like kind of digging through results, and I saw this gravel race in Texas because there was BWR Arizona, and then 2 weeks later there was Mid-South. So I'm like, I'll see if something is like in the area to go do. And then I saw Valley of Tears, and then I saw the prize purse. It was like $26,000. And I'm like, holy smokes, how have I never heard of this? And then you do a little digging, and I found out it was a new race, and the Farley family puts it on, and they used to have, I think their son was in the world tour, and like just really supportive people of like cycling. Like Keegan's helmet design has Pharos on it, and they own that insurance company. So
Okay.
I think they're using.
I think I heard the family name. Do they do a lot of stuff in the US cycling world? Is that possible? Or I confused them with another family, but I know that there is a family name that I heard a few times of like super rich people supporting cycling.
Oh, the Waltons.
Oh yeah, probably these ones.
Yeah, the people who own Walmart. They do a lot of USA cycling support too. But yeah, they have Valley of Tears in Texas, and last year that was like my best result of the year probably. I ended up breaking away with Keegan at mile 10, and him and I stayed away the rest of the day.
Okay, it was this race because the famous breakaway.
Yeah, and there was a crash in a feed zone where I took Keegan out as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I can dive into like the course if you want me to.
Yeah, by all means. So what I did in my checking out, it's like relatively short, definitely by US gravel standards, right? It's like 94 miles, so 151 kilometers. And it looks like, yeah, really desert. It's in a place called Turkey in Texas. But yeah, tell the people what they would expect if they decided to sign up.
Yeah. So it's a really fast, flat course. From like right at the start, you hit this pretty sandy road, and that's actually how Keegan and I got away last year. Was there was a crash like right behind me, and then there was 7 of us, and then that turned into 2. So the first like 7 miles is this really sandy road, and then they changed the course a little bit this year. So you used to do a lot of it's called rail trail. So like old railroad bedding, they turn it into just a gravel path. So at mile 25, we hit that. And then, so it's like a pretty false flat uphill. And then we hit the new section they added this year, comes in around mile like 30. And I think it's like a state park. So there's going to be some off-roading sections in there. I haven't checked out that part. Ben Delaney has a video on it, but it's really hard to tell like how sandy it will be since I haven't seen it in person. And then from there you just hop on some like gravel roads again, and I would say it's pretty standard like open desert or like Texas desert riding. So just
how hot is it this time of year around there?
It's like really cold there. Like last year,
because on the pictures it looks so hot.
Yeah, last year I started in a long sleeve skin suit and was like freezing at the start. Keegan wore a long sleeve jersey and like bib tights. So it's
okay.
And looking at the weather this year, the start, it's still a week out, so it's hard to tell, but the start's supposed to be like 40 degrees and 15 mile per hour winds. So
okay.
That would
so
be,
quick conversion, that would be like 4.5 degrees Celsius if it's 40 Fahrenheit. So yeah, that's indeed pretty cold. I was expecting something else.
Oh yeah, no, it's like northern Texas. I didn't know this till honestly last year, but like it's cold up there, at least this time of year, because the desert gets cold at night, and I think it just stays cold then.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then 2 days before the race last year, this is a random tangent, but it snowed before the race. So that was super interesting because so you do that state park trail, hit some gravel roads, then you go across the start line. So there's the western loop, and then you do the eastern loop, which there's a long, I think it's 12 miles of pavement, and it's really flat. Like I had aero bars last year, and that was like one of the reasons why I was able to hang with Keegan. And then you hit, they have like a name for the next feature, but it's like 10 miles of pretty minimally maintained roads that are pretty bumpy. And when it snowed last year, that whole road became like super hard to ride because all of the mud would clog up. So hopefully it's not a wet year, but it would be interesting if that happened. And then, so you hit that, and then you get back onto that dirt trail and head into town. And then, it's only 94 miles. So it's pretty short and quick. Especially last year, we averaged like 24 miles per hour.
Yeah, that would have been my next question, how fast you go for a race like this. But yeah, and probably this year, even faster if it stays dry, no?
Yeah, I heard that the sand at the start is even more sandy. So hopefully there's no crashes. But yeah, I think I don't know what to expect this year because the field is stronger. It's shorter, and like it's so flat that I think there could be a big group coming into the finish.
As you already mentioned, the aero bars you ran there last year. I mean, you are known for your tinkering and for your ideas. Is there anything special that you're going to bring there, test there, that people can look forward to?
Not really. So they banned aero bars this year. So
they did.
My loophole around that is I have a hydration fairing that attaches to the front of my bike, and then essentially I can use that as like a time trial bar. And last year that's what I ran at Onbound, but I found it to be a little too low to hold for like hours upon hours. So this year I got a new Lauf, and I had my mechanic leave probably like an extra inch of steer tube on cut, so I can, when I like run that, I can just raise my handlebars up, and then it should also make it so I'm a little less bent over. So that will be the first time I run that position in a race. And then I'll also have my disc wheel, which I ran that at Gravel Worlds in Nebraska last year. And then with the wind, I have a deep road wheel that I use, or a Head Vanquish 6, but I may have to run like the regular front gravel wheel just if the winds are too bad.
Yeah.
And then I guess the only like new piece of equipment that nobody's ever seen would be Bora made a prototype skin suit with some like, I feel like the trend in US gravel racing is like all of these privateers have the like high end sponsors that like aren't aerodynamic focused. I'm like MAP would be the like
more fashion focused.
Yeah, more fashion. And with my sponsor Bora, we're trying to get more into the aero scene, so we're using more of that like trip strip fabric, or like the past team I think uses it on their sleeves. Or if you look at the world tour, almost every team is using that material now. So we have a skin suit that has some of that, and then a different fabric for the forearms.
I mean, if you talk about like all these aero things that can be done in terms of clothing, I think that is like one of the areas that is potentially most interesting, but also the most complex, because it really depends on how you wear it. Like then you can introduce like these shapes in the textiles, but then it really depends also on your position, if it is better or potentially even worse, and so on. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. And so interesting that like you have on the one hand side, you have the world tour teams who have like these big budgets and dedicated people who tinker with it. But then on the other hand, they are okay, not in terms of clothes maybe, but they are more restricted with the UCI and potentially also like the old school traditions in cycling, even though that's less of a thing. But then you have like the gravel privateers like yourself or Dylan, who now also want to do all the research and test and push forward. And pretty interesting that you're like in some sense really spearheading this, and also you have more room to tinker, right? Where in other disciplines they cannot, because gravel so far, luckily, at least in my mind, is like this space for people who love tinkering with the equipment, playing around and testing stuff.
Yeah, I'll be going to the wind tunnel soon to do even more official tinkering, I feel like, because right now all my tinkering is like, does it look fast? Yes. Okay, well, think it's fast then.
Well, I mean, I just listened to something where I don't know if you know Hambini. Probably one, like famous engineering YouTuber, cycling YouTuber, and he was on the Chris Miller show. And you saw this as well. Yeah, and then the takeaway was, probably Jesse can see aero to at least to a certain extent. It's possible to see it if you know what to look for, and then there is an end to it, of course. But yeah, that is so nothing super special that we will expect in Valley of Tears. But of course, we nowadays cannot have like a gravel podcast without mentioning tires. And what I would like to know from you, okay, probably what are you running, but also what are you seeing? Is it like everybody who can run mountain bike tires on their bike and fit it does it this year, or not? Does it depend, like a course like BWR Arizona with all the technical stuff, but also a fair bit of pavement? What do people end up running there? What have you seen?
Yeah, so BWR Arizona is 3 years old now. And the first year, I mean, I ran 44s, and that was one of the bigger tires there. I would say the standard was like a 42 millimeter Pathfinder. And then the next year, so last year, people like Keegan, I think, ran 50 millimeter tires, if I remember. And I lived down here last year, so I did a lot of pre-riding, and I ran 2.2 Race Kings, but we were still seeing like a lot of 45 to 50 millimeter tires. And this year, everyone besides like I think Kyle Trudeau had the biggest tires their bike could fit on their frame, and Torbjorn or Toby, he had 2.4-inch mountain bike tires on, which like I pre-rode with him, and it looked like he just was on Velcro, like the way he was able to like lean his bike and everything. I'm just like, dang, like I wish I had those. But at the same time, I think there is a happy medium. Like if bigger was faster, then we would all be on mountain or fat bike tires.
Yeah.
But if you've ever rode a fat bike tire, you know at some point once you go too big, it gets slower. So I think like that 2.2-inch Conti Race King is the happy medium right now. At Valley of Tears and at Mid South, I think you'll see kind of a combination of 45. You'll see anywhere from 45 millimeters to 2.2-inch mountain bike tires, because it's not like, I think the two biggest races that in America are Onbound and Big Sugar. And for both of those races, you want mountain bike tires. But a lot of these secondary events like Mid-South, like Valley of Tears, there's not really any super rough sections where like flatting is a high probability. So you can go down to like a 45 millimeter tire that's a little bit faster rolling, and still have like a good race. There is there's that sand at the start, and if that's really bad, I'll probably throw on mountain bike tires. So it will depend on my pre-riding, but also it's so fast. Like Valley of Tears, we averaged 24 miles per hour, that it's like, okay, at a certain point, like the rolling resistance adds up with those mountain bike tires as well. And the aerodynamics.
And I mean, in the end, I guess it always will be course dependent, right? And then also weather dependent, because even at Unbound, if it is super muddy, you cannot bring out the mountain bike tires because you need the clearance for the mud and so on. But I think in general, you can assume that on many off-road stuff, rolling resistance wise, it makes sense to run the bigger stuff. But then on the other hand, aero wise, definitely the smaller stuff makes more sense. And then also on pavement, probably the other tires, smaller tires, are rolling better in terms of rolling resistance. So you need horses for courses, as they say.
Yeah.
If the horses are tires in this case.
Yeah, I brought like I have everything from my 2.2-inch mountain bike tires to Mid-South is known for like their red dirt or red clay, that if it like rains, it gets really bad. So I brought like 35 millimeter tires and 40 millimeter tires in case you have that mud that just clogs everything up.
You need to be traveling with a rather big car.
Yeah, I have a van that I just throw everything in, luckily.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as we already are at Mid-South, so Mid-South, or somehow it got this reputation for being the season opener, as we alluded to in the beginning, is like also one of the shorter US races at 107 miles. It's in Oklahoma, in something, as I learned, the Cross Timbers eco region. And it goes through what I found really interesting, like through tribal lands. I don't know if that is something that you really, as a racer, when you go there at super high speeds, you get a know that you're there and that you feel somehow. But sounds definitely interesting.
Yeah, we don't really notice like that we're going through tribal land. Yeah, there's no like, I think if you're on like one of the main paved roads, you'll have like a now entering, and then it will be like the Native American tribe. You're entering into their land. But since we're on like the dirt roads, they don't have any signage or anything. So yeah, there's nothing like.
It feels like your standard gravel race.
Yeah, feels really standard. Like there's nothing different about that.
So at least they do good marketing or storytelling around the race.
Yeah, I would honestly say it's more of like a marketing thing. I don't want to say it's a marketing thing, but I think it's good that they recognize that they're going on their land, and like, kind of thanking them for allowing it. So that's,
yeah, makes sense. Like, and then from a race perspective, is it also pretty fast?
Yeah, Mid-South is really fast as well. I think last year we did it in under 4.5 hours, and it was like a little over 100 miles. So it's another race that you average 22, 23 miles per hour. I would say it's very similar to the Gravel Worlds course on that. I think it's they released the course just yesterday, I think, and it said it had 8,000 feet of climbing, but I think that was like then it also said it only had 6,000 feet of descent. So it's somewhere in between those numbers. So it's kind of just a lot of micro rolling hills, just like Gravel Worlds. Like we say death by 1,000 cuts. So yeah, and then the gravel is usually pretty hard packed as well, and which makes it even faster.
And then the start list, is it comparable to the start list that you will find at BWR Arizona and Valley of Tears this year?
I think most people that are doing Valley of Tears are also going to be doing Mid-South besides Keegan, and then there's like a couple additional people. Like I know Alexi Vermeulen is kicking his season off at the Mid-South, so he won't be at Valley of Tears. I don't know who else would be like an additional racer. So I guess you're taking out Keegan and you're adding Alexi, which on a course like Mid-South, I think is like an even trade-off, honestly. So, yeah.
We didn't go there for Valley of Tears, but they are one of the few races actually that are quite transparent about who is signing up and racing there, something that probably more gravel races should do actually. But yeah, as you said, like it's Keegan and Sophia are racing, Russell as well, Axel Dubois-Prévost, Borstelmann, yourself, you are also listed there, Tobin, Hugo Drichou, Emily Newsom. So Dylan is going to race Valley of Tears, Adam Roberge, Brian Standish. And from the European known guys, Simon Nordal Svensson also coming to Valley of Tears. So yeah, pretty strong lineup there. And if most of them come to Mid-South, definitely the season will have kicked off after these races, and the first results will be in the books. Are there any like young talents that you think we should have an eye on? New names?
Yeah, I think Daxton isn't like super young, but he was with me in that Gravel Worlds breakaway. that we almost stuck. We got caught by a chase group and essentially stayed with them. He didn't have aero bars, and I think he's super strong. Like, he hung in and never skipped a pole, and he got sick for BWR Arizona, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. Another big young talent that I don't think is getting enough recognition is Kobe Freeburn or something like that. He had a couple top 10 finishes at the Rad and Big Sugar, I believe, and he was on that Bear development team, but now he has his own program with Map, Wahoo, and Trek. So he will be a good one to watch out for. And then that, I guess, like the Luke kid who passed or caught me and Toby right at the end. I know BWR Arizona is more mountain bike focused, or like suits a mountain biker a lot, but I talked with him a little bit after the race, and he's only 19 years old. Oh. So I think he could be a really good one to watch out for in the next, maybe not get winning anything this year, but definitely probably getting more top 10s for him. So, yeah.
Like, the one topic I touch upon as well is related to young talents, because I wonder, especially in the US scene, where, I mean, road cycling, I don't want to say like it has died, but the way I perceive it from here, you had a super strong crit scene. People tell me that is also struggling and not as prominent anymore. So gravel racing, off-road racing is really the thing currently in the US when it comes to cycling. But then also the economics of gravel and the business side of it is not really super friendly to young talent, because most of it is privateer driven. And so you need this setup of sponsors and brands that support you. And also gravel is not cheap, right? You need to travel to all these places. Registration fees are high. You need equipment. I don't know, like feed zones here in Europe. At least we have a trend to more and more aid stations and feed zones, so you need people to travel with you. It's becoming more and more expensive to do it. Meanwhile, there is no really talent development pipeline in gravel, rather to the contrary. Is it like an issue that you see, or do you also see good solutions for it out there that allow young, very good bike riders to get into gravel?
I think it's a struggle for the U23 or junior racers. Yeah, because registration is expensive. There's no, if you're a really fast junior or U23 racer in the road scene, at least you could probably get on like a development team, and there's prize money still at like road and crit stuff is dying, but at least there's some payout still at those races, where in gravel racing, at least I don't know what it's like in Europe, but a lot of these races, there's not payout. Like Lifetime
payouts.
Lifetime just changed that this year, where they'll pay, I think, the top 5 or top 10 at their events. So that's cool. But yeah, I think it'd be hard to like have to ask your mom or dad to come travel with you every single month to, the US is big, and
that is where teams would come in normally, right? Because teams can identify talent, they take care of bringing sponsors on board and creating this infrastructure that a young kid can plug into, and that is, in my mind at least, kind of missing in gravel, and it would be good if that would be developed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now there's the only gravel like development teams that I know of that are really supporting U23 racers, and I don't know too much about the junior stuff because not too many juniors are racing the really long distance stuff.
Sure.
But U23, I see the Bear development team has like a gravel focused team. And then her name is Nina Machina on Instagram. She's kind of creating her own youth development or U23 development team. And she, like, one of my friends that I have a Bible study with, he's 18 and he's on her development team. And like, they get a Lauf bike. They had to pay a certain amount, like, but from what I've heard, it sounds like there's more benefit to like him paying that. Like, then he gets everything covered at all the team events and stuff. And I guess to toot my horn again, I support one U23 racer, Isaac Allred. He had a really good performance last year at several of the gravel races. I guess he would definitely be another one to watch, especially if he doesn't have equipment issues. And like, I'll support him by helping cover travel. Last year, I gave him Lauf bike and built it up with components. Yeah, paid for housing at some of the races.
That's pretty cool. Is that something that more guys and girls do?
No, the only other gravel pro that I know that, like, this sounds mean, but the only other pro that I know that gives back to youth development in like sponsoring riders is Alexi. And he like made those YouTube videos. If you go to Alexi and Avery's Instagram or YouTube channel, you can see they sponsored one male and female rider. And then there's a few female athletes like Hannah Otto. She does a lot of like bigger mentorship things. So she'll do like classes with 20 or 50 riders, which that's really good. And I bet, there probably is more gravel pros supporting people. I don't.
They're not on the record.
They're not on the record. And like, even for me, I'm not posting all the time. Like, oh yeah, look, I paid my Isaac's $350 registration fee for Onbound. I'm such a good,
yeah.
It's, yeah.
Good that you don't.
Yeah, it'd be weird. So,
but talent development in gravel really, to me, is an interesting topic and kind of a challenge, because right now we see a lot of like people coming in the space who are like the young people really are in their mid-20s very often, and then and then of course like the former pro elite road racers or so, who then transition to gravel, who are still probably pretty strong contenders, but as a sport you need young talent that creates kind of the attraction for outside people, and it keeps it alive and interesting. And that is something where, of course, we saw Lifetime introducing like their under 23 competition, but that is probably a first tiny step. Good that they do it, definitely, but I guess not the solution. Given that you founded a team, I guess you are also not against teams coming to gravel, and that would be to me definitely part of the solution, to have more of these infrastructures that riders can just plug in.
Yeah, maybe Lunchbox Racing ends up having a development team in a year or two, since Drew and I both have like coaching businesses. We could use those to like help support the athletes. And one of my this is a little tangent, but I do so for all of my so I host 4 events, gravel events myself during the year, and anyone under 23 gets free registration. So I'm like, for me, I hope that can help like get more people into the sport, and then it would be cool. This like my big dream is to have those 4 races and have a race series kind of like the T100 triathlon series where they're really, really good at media focused or using media to like help promote the athletes and really making a names for themselves. And like it shows a lot more behind the scenes. So that's like my big dream someday. And there's really everyone's like paid travel, paid starts, good prize money. So
Yeah, that's really cool. So the one thing that I definitely cannot cannot have you leave before we talk about it, is in all your races you also have one that follows the tradition of being named after food, after a dish, namely the hot dish. I think nobody in Europe knows hot dish, so let the people know what hot dish is and then also what your race actually is like.
yeah, so I guess the best way to like explain Hotdish. So even people in the United States, unless you live in like Minnesota or Wisconsin, you probably don't know what Hotdish is.
So it's super regional.
Yeah, it's super regional. It's a casserole, which I don't know if Europeans know that or what a casserole is, but in the US, essentially what you would do is ground up some beef or saute some onions, ground up some beef, then in the onions, dump that into a tray, and then you would take, it's like a really cheap meal to make and can feed a lot. And then what I'll do is like dump a bag of mixed veggies, like frozen mixed veggies, and then you take a cream of tomato soup, and you just dump that in, and then kind of mix it all together, and then you put tater tots. Do you guys have tater tots over in Europe?
No, I know tater tots because I'm on the food internet a lot, but this you need to explain.
Yeah.
What are tater tots?
Oh man, I don't even know how to do. Imagine French fry, but if you like essentially it's just like chopped up potato, like very micro chopped up, and then it's made into like a little they're cylinders. Honestly, they're not even like balls. They're usually like a little tiny 1-inch cylinder, and then it's deep fried, and then or a hash brown. Do you guys have hash browns? It's hashed up potato in a little like ball shape, deep fried, and then deep fried or cooked. I actually don't know. I think you have to deep fry them to make them stick together. And then
I never made them, but I guess what I will do is I will put a link in the show notes to a picture of tater tots. So
okay, yeah. But yeah, and then you put tater tots on top of that mixture of ground beef, vegetables, and the cream of mushroom soup. And then you throw that in the oven for like 40 minutes, and then it pops out, and you have tater tot hot dish. And for like $5, you can feed yourself for like a long time. Yeah.
Nice. And how did you end up calling your race after this?
Oh, I was biking with a friend, and I was telling him I wanted to hold a bike race and kind of make it like Minnesota themed. So I'm like, I need a good like Minnesota name. And then we were just naming off things that are like very Minnesota based. And then he said hot dish, and I'm like, perfect. I'll have hot dish, and I'll serve hot dish at the end of it. And like, that will make my event unique in a way. So yeah.
I love it, and I would hope that we see more and more gravel races pop up who do it. I mean, I learned also in one episode that we did on here that the Rancho Gravel, so the Gravel Earth Series finale, also is named after a local dish, and I think that is one of the cool things in in gravel racing specifically, that you have all these races in these places, and the race and the local environment where it is in, it somehow closely relates. And I guess food is a good way to share this. As riders, we need to eat a lot, and so really cool. I like it. It's a trend. I want to promote it. More races should be named after dishes and serve those dishes.
Yes, I think, like, for me, I have all of my events community focused, and by that I mean, like, I want people to hang out after the race and, like, talk with their friends. So I think more races should have, with the registration, I don't care if you have to charge $10 extra, but there should be a meal included, so you can just take your meal ticket, grab a plate of food, and then hang out with your new friends that you met on the route, and, like, hang out with them, tell your stories, share your Stravas with each other. I don't know, like, just build friendships through the events.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that also can set it apart from certain other cycling sub-communities.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we talked about the races that are coming. Probably let's end on your goals for these next two races. What do you want to achieve there? What do you think you can achieve at Valley of Tears and Mid-South?
Oh, man. Last year at Valley of Tears, I crashed in a feed zone when I was broken away with Keegan Swenson. And I crashed because I took my my hydration backpack, and when I was trying to get it on, it, like, threw my shoulder back and I twisted my handlebars. And when I crashed, it broke my hydration pack. So I didn't have any calories the second half of the race. And I would like to think if I would have had calories, I could have at least made it to the finish line with Keegan. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been able to beat him in a sprint, given he is really good at that. But I'd like to make it to the finish of Valley of Tears with the leader or leaders. That would be my goal there. And sorry, I shouldn't have drank in my root beer. And then for Mid-South, I would like to see me or Drew get a top 5 result and use team tactics to make that happen. So I have plans for both of them, but I'm not gonna share them here, I guess. If you have me back after Mid-South, I can tell you my plans. Yeah, if you see me on the podium, it's probably because my plan was executed well. So
nice. That's a good teaser for the listeners. So make sure you follow what's going on in these two races. They will be followable on Instagram, at least, I assume. No live coverage that I know about, sadly, but yeah, we have to take what we can get as gravel spectators.
Yeah, both Valley of Tears and Mid-South the past couple of years the years I've done them have always had good front group coverage.
Yeah, on Instagram.
On Instagram, yep.
Yeah. So that is where we will follow these races, and we hope to see you there. Thanks a lot for your time, for talking us through let's say the 3 season opening races of US Gravel. Was a pleasure. I wish you all the best for these races, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Talk to you again.